So for as long as I've been collecting board games, which I'd say has been about 2 years, a little longer, um, the common criticism I get for people who are like seriously into the hobby, it's usually negative feedback and towards like one of my favorite games that I've actually did a video on this for the channel called Settlers of Catan, which I love that game. It's awesome. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, really don't dislike or hate. Hate is a very strong word. A lot of people who are seriously into tabletop gaming really have a problem with Catan, and I can understand why. The common complaint that I seem to get is that people don't really like it because they feel like it's a one and done game. They feel like it's an entry level game. It's overrated, overhyped. And I'm not gonna lie, I can definitely understand where they're coming from. Every Walmart, Target, pretty much any major superstore you walk in there that has an actual tabletop section, Catan's always there, and it's usually there with the Junior Edition, and it's usually there with Seafarers, I believe it is called. It's an expansion that I actually don't have, but it's usually there, and I'm also seeing the dice game there too now. But a lot of people like really hate on it, and I can't. And it's the thing is, like, this is the game that really got me into the hobby. I mean, it deserves a whole other video just for that, for me to explain it. But I'm just gonna fix that here. There we go. Perfect. I can't really understand the hate. I can definitely understand the overrated aspect of it. I can understand the hype, but it's not a bad game at all. It's, in my opinion, what Catan does a lot of really cool things, and it's worth noting. So, it's funny. I use the box here as like a prop, but there's nothing in it. I actually keep the game in a special carrying case in my game closet, but I'm just realizing now that the cover of this and the box itself are opposites, and I'm a little OCD about that kind of thing, so now we're good. So I will say what Catan does really well. I think as an introductory game for teenagers and adults, it has a pull to it. It has a grab, I'll say, that is very infectious to the point where once you're done with that first game, you want to play again. This is definitely a game where when I do teach it, there's usually one or two people that want to play almost immediately. There's something about it that people really like. And that's another thing about it, is that once you learn how to play, the simplicity of it, it does something to people who normally don't play board games. And I think what that is that usually when you sit someone down to say, hey, let's play Catan, they probably see the game on the board, on the store shelves. They look at the back, they see the hexagons, they see the numbers, and I can tell you right now, they probably get a little intimidated, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a couple games that are sitting on store shelves that kind of intimidate me a little bit, but they see that stuff and they're not used to playing stuff like that. A lot of people who do tabletop of any kind, whether it be Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, or even like Monopoly or Uno, or just, the more simpler stuff that I call it, they're not used to something like this. And I think once you sit them down and they go through the motions, they learn themselves, and they realize that, a game that actually does have really clever mechanics in it, it kind of turns something on in their head a little bit. Like, oh, well, this is what this is. Well, I really like that. Because what Catan does is what other games, in my opinion, for people who don't normally play, it brings a whole new light to an area that they didn't really know too much about. Because Catan is really, you roll dice, you collect resources if you have cities or developments near those corresponding areas that are marked with the numbers. and you build and you trade, and that's pretty much it. It's a very straightforward game. And it's just that a lot of the mechanics people aren't really used to. I mean, again, to kind of go back, Monopoly is roll the dice. Are you going to buy that property? Maybe you draw a card. Maybe you go to jail. It's very straightforward. There's not a whole lot extra to do. And I think that's why a lot of people get turned off from this. And believe me, it, Catan's one of those games where I think I'm explaining it to someone who has never ever played a game in their life, they get so immediately disconnected from what's going on that they just don't care. And it's more like, no, let me sit you down, let me show you how to play it. And for the most part, they do seem to enjoy it. The only person I actually sat down and tried to teach this to, and they really had nothing positive to say about it, was my brother. And to be fair, he's more into party games, and this is more of a group game than a party game. And I definitely recommend that you play with no less than 3 people for Catan, because 2 is really boring. So, as far as overhype goes, I'm gonna say yes in the regard that it was a very popular, very well received game, and of course they're gonna still try to sell it to this game. It's won awards. It's worldly renowned. It's considered one of the major pillars of the tabletop gaming genre. And to say it's overhyped, I don't think necessarily overhype is the right word. I think it's more just like it's trying. People just think that it's overhyped, but really it's just there. It's kind of basking in its own glory. It's not really asking anything different of people. I will say that the expansions add a whole lot of new flavor to it. If you're a fan of this, oh my gosh, the space version is insane. The special legendary version of this, which is like my holy grail, if I can ever find it, which is like about $1,000, I think. I love it. I think it's a fun game. It doesn't get a lot of table time necessarily, but the reason for that is because I just play a lot of other stuff. But at the same time, I can understand the negative attention it gets. I can understand the turnoff people gets. But honestly, what this game does is it has a really easy pull. It has a really easy to learning mechanic. It's basically socialist Monopoly in a weird way, if you really think about it, because you benefit even when it isn't your turn. It's a game that once you learn how to play, and if you're someone who enjoys a little bit of a challenge or learning new things, it's going to make you... It feels very rewarding when you do well, and that's one of the things Catan does very, very good. You definitely feel like you're succeeding when you start getting resources on turns that aren't yours. When you start playing your development cards and getting those bonuses. When you know exactly where to put your roads and your cities to get the ports and so on and so forth. And honestly, that's what Catan is in my eyes. It's a perfect gateway game. And as much as some people, when I say some people, I'm mainly referring to people who normally don't play, who just don't care, or the people who've been in the hobby for so long, who just have the huge big box games that cost hundreds of dollars. They look at something like this and they automatically are just like, oh, that's an entry-level overhyped game. It's kind of like how a lot of people feel, kind of like how I feel with Skyrim. I feel it's extremely overhyped for what it is. It feels like it's a very bogged down RPG that you yourself have to put a lot of personal, a lot of your own personal twist on what you're doing for it to get interesting. And I know people are going to disagree with me and say that I'm wrong, but again, that's besides the point. The point is, Catan's a good game. It's a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend getting it. I also recommend getting the 5 and 6 player expansion. It adds more tiles. It, of course, adds 2 new players. And it's a really fun game to have a lot of people go around the table. The interactions you have with each other, the good times, the memories, the banter, the fact that a lot of it, like, the rolls are all luck based, so you can't really get mad at that. But it's what you can do on your turn and make the most of it, which can truly make the game. The trading with other people with resources, the exchanging your resources to the bank to get what resources you need, going for the largest army if you can, going for the longest road if you can. There's just so much going on here, and I think that, for anyone who really hasn't played it, or really anyone who dislikes it, I encourage you maybe take another look at it. Don't make it so overly competitive. Just open this up, put down the tiles, just play a game or two with some friends, and just experience it for what it is. And it's just a fun, easy going, easy to learn, very rewarding game that honestly it does what it needs to do, and it gets people at the table, and it wants you to keep playing more. So that's why I really like Catan. I still put it in my top 10. It has definitely fallen from number 1 as I played more stuff, but that's what's going to happen. I think with this can only. There's really nothing new you can do to it that's going to freshen it up. Now, there are rules you can add to it that can change it, which I do encourage you to look up and try for yourself. But for what it is, if you have an extra $40 to spend and you got 4 people, I recommend giving this a shot. Keep a lookout, especially during the holiday seasons. I usually see these games drop about 10 to 20 on some retailers. I'm kind of kicking myself now because I remember last year Marshall's was selling the Rise of the Incas expansion, and I think they were only selling it for like $15-20, and that's like a $65 game. So, oh well. So that's gonna do it for this one. Let me know what you thought down below, and let me question for you watching: would you want to sit down and maybe play this with old Bumble, have a couple of games, some good laughs? Oh, and one more thing: when you do play, under no circumstance, toward the later part of the game, do you ever trade any ore or wheat? On better thought, just don't trade anything at all. It's pretty much first come, first serve, and we can all agree, anyone who has played, the market is freaking closed once people start getting to like 7 and 8 victory points. So that's going to do it for this video. My apologies for the really bad joke. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, you guys keep gaming.